that. Here we are to talk CodeCatalyst.
Hey.
Who shall we start with? Let's see. Show of hands.
This is all Doug.
Yeah.
Well, we got to do intros first.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll go first.
There you go, Doug.
Yeah. My name's Doug Clausen. I'm a product manager with our Code Suite team. Most recently, as we said, we launched CodeCatalyst, so we're excited to be here to talk about that today. Kyle?
Yeah, and I work with Doug closely. I'm also a product manager, really focused on CodeCatalyst, but also part of the larger DevOps group. Got the pleasure of working with Steve a little while ago too. And
I thank you indeed for your contributions to my news blog post.
There we go.
You two wouldn't happen to know Richard Boyd, would you?
Oh, yes. Of course we do. Yeah.
I won't admit to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either if I were you. But I love Richard Boyd. He actually started out watching Twitch. He would watch every Twitch show that AWS put out, and now he works here. So all of you watching, that could be your. He actually worked at Amazon first, and then he left and watched all the Twitch shows, and then came back, and now you all get the pleasure of working with Richard. Anyway, I have to shout out my buddy Richard because you all came on. Doug, it sounds like we're starting with you.
Sure.
Isn't that right?
That'll work.
CodeCatalyst. What is it, and where did it come from? What was the driver here to we've had this is my area too. I'm super excited to talk DevOps with you all. We've had a lot of DevOps products, but why CodeCatalyst and why now?
Yeah, sure. So let me talk about kind of what we had and then what led us to CodeCatalyst. So the Code Suite as it exists today, if you're familiar with the services, Code Deploy, Code Pipeline, etc., they're really used as sort of building blocks, right? Customers take some of our pieces and some pieces from other companies and build their own opinionated solution for how they want to develop software. And that works really well for some customers. And then we had other customers who wanted they wanted to do it how we did it, right? They're like, we just want to do what you do. So just tell us how we should do software development. And they wanted something more opinionated that would allow them to sort of get started faster. So CodeCatalyst is our offering in that space. So if you think about sort of all from issues management all the way through deployment, CodeCatalyst sort of handles everything in between that process.
So we got quite a range of customers there, right? So we got the customers who've already built some of this kind of environment, and we've got customers coming in who have got nothing right from ground zero. Just give me a development environment. Does this work across all that range of customers, right? Would it work with people who've got existing tooling that they want to keep? Do they have to move? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did is we wanted to meet customers where that they were, right? So in their journeys. Obviously, it would work for a new customer because they don't have anything in place and they could pick it up and use the entire first-party solution. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, one of the things we wanted to make sure we did with CodeCatalyst was make sure it was extensible. And there's really two ways to extend it, if you will. One sort of changes the entire behavior of the way the application works. And the other one allows you to build your own workflow actions. So let me talk about the first one first, in terms of how you extend the product, right? So we actually launched with two ways you could extend the product. One is in the issues management area. So if you were using Jira for your issues, for example, and you didn't want to use our first party solution, you just wanted to integrate and continue using your Jira application, you could do that. And so you'd link your Jira app into CodeCatalyst, and you'd sort of completely forego our issues management system and continues to use Jira for your issues management. Right. Similarly with GitHub Source, we do the exact same thing. So if you don't want, if you've got your source set in GitHub already and you want to continue to use that, great. Just sort of sub in our first-party solution in source management and use GitHub instead. So those are the two we've got there. And we launched in preview. I should have mentioned that up front. So we were a preview launch at reInvent. And as we continue to mature the product, we'll continue to develop out those 3P solutions, what we call them, right? So we'll continue to add more ways for you to continue using what you were using, so we can sort of meet you where you were and allow you to only use the pieces that you needed help with, the pieces you were trying to improve upon. The second way that we've sort of built extensions is in the workflow areas. So if you're familiar with Code Pipeline or orchestrating a build or a deployment to a certain area, we also have we built integrations with GitHub Actions. And so you can take any of the, I think it's 12,000 GitHub Actions that exist today, use those in your workflows. You could also obviously write your own GitHub Actions that would allow you to extend it. And we're also working to allow third parties to build their own custom actions that then we would develop or we would deploy for them, so that customers could sort of change what happens in their workflow based on whatever they wanted to go do. So.
Right. Then you mentioned, oh, that was the second piece. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, I was thinking ahead, but there's more to this than that, though, right? There's collaboration. There's obviously the release pipelines and so on. Can you elaborate on what features are available there?
Yeah, sure. So I hit up a little bit on the pipelines, but let me hit on a few more. So if you go get started on CodeCatalyst, one of the things we wanted to do is make it easier for you to orchestrate your pipelines, right? And so we've got both a visual editor on the pipelines, as well as if you're familiar with YAML and you want to continue using YAML to do a text editing of it, you can do that as well. I talked about the extensions there, how you can build your own actions. You can use GitHub Actions, which is an advancement upon what we could do with CodePipeline, for example. Nice. Yeah, so GitHub Actions was a really an enabler for us. Yeah. We've also worked with another partner there. Used to be called White Source. Now the company is Mend, but it's a software security scanning app.
Yes.
We want to continue building that in, right? So that when you are picking up or developing your workflow and you want to pick up something, the GitHub linter or something like whatever you're trying to do, right? We're trying to build those first party actions. So you have an entire library to pull from, and you don't have to go build some custom integration, right? That's what we're trying to get away from, is you having to build and maintain all of those custom integrations. And then collaboration, there's a lot in the collaboration space. So, one of the things that we wanted to do was sort of lower the barrier to entry, right? So you can get started on CodeCatalyst. If I had a project and I wanted to invite Kyle, I could invite Kyle to my project, and he can get started on my project with just an email and a password. So he doesn't have to have an AWS account. I already have that. I've already set that up for the project. So he can get started helping me sort of instantly. And what we saw is, sort of getting the shared context all the way from issue management through the deployment was pretty powerful. And we were actually debugging problems ourselves, right? It's like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Let me invite Kyle. Kyle jumps in. He sees everything that I'm seeing, sort of instantly, with giving access to one area of the tool. So go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to say, that brings me to another question about that collaboration is, let's say you do invite Kyle to your project, right? Or I invite AM to one of mine.
Would you?
No, but that's beside the point. But presumably, Kyle would traditionally have to do some setup, right? If I'm stuck in, let's say, .NET land, right, with a project, Kyle would have to go and install SDKs, tooling, etc., before he could even get started. And this gets rid of some of that.
Yeah, so that's.
Look, I feel like I should take this. I feel like I'm being.
Since they picked on you, yeah.
I'm being too polite. No. We see a couple of use cases, but one is I just want to have the other part is bringing everything in one place, like Doug hit on, is so important. Like it's a place where I can see my whole pipeline, my whole tool. I don't just, we took a project or product oriented view versus a service oriented view with our experience. And once you're in the project, we see many projects existing, and we see this with our own teams. You're running Java, .NET, all these different environments, and maybe you're on call, maybe you're just an expert in an API, but you don't know the language, but you know enough to sort of contribute. One of the really powerful features of the product is called dev environments. And so these are integrated into, so every CodeCatalyst project has a source repositories, which is kind of unique. You can have multiple source repositories inside of a single project, and they can all have independent pipelines. And we can talk about that a little bit more, but cool. From any source repository, you can launch a dev environment. And those are defined in code using a dev file, which is sort of an open standard that's developing, and it specs what exactly is needed to run this project. And then it's going to load the code in and create an environment. And what's really powerful about that is you can launch it in JetBrains, you can launch it into VS Code, kind of your go-to IDEs, or into the browser if you're Richard and you use Cloud9. And you can hop into your code and get at it. And it's pretty powerful, from bug fixes to all the way up. So the dev environments is a really exciting feature that's available just out of the box to all of our customers.
And Steve, I'll add to the top of that too. You mentioned having to install things locally, right? That is the big value add for dev environments. Is think of all of your heavy lifting happening in a cloud-based machine that's set up for you based on that software definition that Kyle talked about. And then you just get to enjoy if I wanted to jump between repositories, I simply go to that repository. If it could be a totally different language, totally different architecture, totally different dependencies, same button click still gets me started and my machine working.
Does it also work if, for example, I don't want to use your like I like my machine as it is, right? It's got the tooling I need. So if I'm invited to a project, can I still just jump in from where I am, or do
I know better than you, Steve. You should just use my environment.
No, never.
You can do you mean like so you can
Well, I'm
we are
thinking
at a root, we're a source repository, so you can clone this down locally with a
right.
with a
That's
personal
what that's
access
what I'm
token.
thinking, right? So I'm obviously my history is .NET, right? So I've got Visual Studio, VS Code, Rider installed, right? Those are the environments I like to use. I can continue using those, right? This is just a repo.
Yeah, that's right. So part of what's cool, and Doug kind of touched on this, like we've taken we launched in along with Builder ID, which is a really exciting way to attach an identifier to you as a human. You're not just an IAM user now. Everywhere
outside
you go,
of AWS.
Yeah, it's a really exciting initiative, and we're one of the first projects to be integrated with that. And with that is every project you belong to, you have permissions. You're a contributor, maybe you're the administrator. You can access that through the web or through dev environments. But yeah, you can also create a personal access token as you would expect and clone that repo locally and work on it as you would. So we're flexible, kind of going back to what Doug said. Like we want to meet the customer. We know that everyone has very strong opinions, and we can kind of at least put the baselines out to give you a selection. And we're learning where to go further and more, but the personal access token flow is great. You have code on your machine in a matter of seconds.
I am like 95% sure there is a demo, and maybe this is something that would be very good to see working too. It might make more sense too if we can see it.
There is a demo.
Kyle's got a demo. But one other thing I wanted to call out, one of the other
please.
big things that we wanted to accomplish with this was helping people get started faster on AWS.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing I think we did really well, especially, was on what we call project blueprints. I think you'll see some of this in the demo. But if I had to go start an AWS project today, and let's say I'm building a single page app or a container-based app, right, something like that. For me, I'm out visiting the well-architected pages to make sure I'm grabbing the right set of services, or I'm looking at the solution library, like making sure, do they have one that I could use, right? And what we did is we took sort of the best of those things and turned them into what we call blueprints. So think of a blueprint as like kind of a one-stop shop for creating your particular application. So you'll get by running a blueprint or creating a blueprint, you give it a name. There's some customization if you want to do it. Most of them don't require much there. And then you sort of get the entire project set up for you. So issues management board, source code repos that now you own in your project, CI/CD pipelines that, again, now you own in your project, and your first deployment will actually already be happening. So I just want to make sure we call that one out too, because we got a lot of really good feedback on how that has helped people accelerate their sort of adoption of different resources inside of AWS.
Yeah, I know that when I was back writing the news blog post for this, that I think was a lot of this I really like when I was writing the news blog, but that blueprint concept where it sets up everything for me, I thought that was really powerful.
Well, not even just everything is great too, but there's even like challenges. And stop me if I say anything stupid. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Steve will stop me right now.
Stop.
I set that joke up for him. No, and there are positives to this side too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to just say this is all cons. But like when you're just going and using code build, for example, right? And Doug, you just gave the example. I need to go set up a single page app. You got to figure out what image code build's going to use that also includes React, or you're going to have to install React in the environment in like a build script or something when you're using code build. Whereas it sounds like these blueprints, you can just pick like, hey, this one has React, and I know it. I don't have to go do like in-depth analysis. But the beauty of having both, right, is that if you have specific things, if you have like a specific version of a specific type of build tool that you're using, you still have access to code build, and you can go, set up code build however you want it, just like you could in the past. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's well put. And the demo we're going to show is post blueprint create. So Doug, I'm glad you called that out. I was just going to add one other thing. The cool thing about CodeCatalyst is, and we'll share the link after, but it's available at CodeCatalyst at AWS. We work across AWS accounts. So we see this often.
Yeah.
Customers have a dev environment. They have multiple dev environments across regions. They have lots of AWS accounts that they want to be deploying code into before they go to prod. And so CodeCatalyst, when you're setting up your blueprint, you actually configure the default AWS account. You can then create more, and then your workflow will go through and deploy those in there. So the demo we're going to hop into is having already created a project from a blueprint. This one's using a single page application. This is a better demo in that it gives you a sense of the actual project. As cool as it is to create, it's more interesting to see what it's like to collaborate and use. It's the same demo that was used. I shared during the reInvent as well. So it may look somewhat familiar.
I've got your screen pulled up, Kyle. Before we jump in and move past blueprints, though, I wanted to ask probably a simple question that may not have a simple answer. Obviously, AWS has some blueprints. Can I create blueprints that are then shared like with my team, and my team can utilize the blueprints I've created? Is that available yet?
Like you mean if you and your team has like very specific security and architecture requirements and best practices, it'd be great if it was just automatically applied. It's a good idea. Yeah, not yet.
I've got some of them. I've got every once in a while.
The number one, we gave, Doug and I both gave a few chalk talks and met with some folks, and the excitement for blueprints and specifically how can I make my own, it's a top request. People are really excited about that.
Awesome.
For sure. I'll offer one more thing, Kyle, before just to take your statement a little bit further. Not only do we want to be able to let customers make their own, and therefore they could sort of standardize how their work is done. Sure. But after, say you created a blueprint and 10 of your groups went and created applications, right? Those need to be living documents. Let's say you find a security error inside your blueprint, right? Or something that you want everybody to fix. We want to create the blueprints to basically be living documents, right? Such that they would be able to create pull requests on the subsequent projects, which would then help them go about fixing things that maybe were, right? If you changed your policy and or you found an error, right, you could go fix it across the board without having to worry about it. So those are things that are coming, but yeah, not quite there yet.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Doug. So right here, this is kind of cool. I can pause and play my video. This is not a live demo. This is a recorded one. So
you shouldn't have told us that, Kyle. Just
I know. Well, this is why it has been stuck here for a while. I gotta be honest. I'm not gonna lie about this. So this is the homepage. This is on the project homepage. You can see the members that have been added. One thing that Doug brought up, you have permission controls, but if you're in the space level, if you're an administrator, you get access to the projects by default. So for small teams where everyone's sort of like a startup or like a small group where everyone wants access, you just kind of get it. You can inherit. Of course, you can control that, but by default, you get in there.
The difference. Yeah. Sorry, I know you got a video. Can you just explain the difference between a space and a project or projects?
Yeah, think of your space as the container for your projects. So the space sits, it defines the region where your project, all the project data is going to be stored. You connect AWS accounts at the space level. You set up billing at the space level. Extensions are done there, and then you create projects within your space. So the space is a container. We wanted to have that overlaying. Like we have really cool things like you can search across all projects from the space level. So if you want to look up good examples of gitignore or CDK JSONs, like you can do that and see all the repos that you have access to. So the space is this like layer, we think of it like a collaboration layer and organization layer on top of the project, but the project's where the work really gets done. So in this case here, I'm in the project. We just saw the README of this. We're going through, we'll see things like the workflow runs. We'll get into looking at all these closer. So if we take this particular project comes with two, I think this is called the on push to main pipeline. So you can see it does a couple steps. It has CDK bootstrap, build and test, and then it's doing a deploy. Nothing too complicated, but this is out of the box with the single page app. And this particular demo, it's launching the marketing website for this hypothetical product called Quackabot, which is a code searching tool. So this is Quackabot. This is actually posting to Amplify hosting, which is super cool. Yeah. So we're trying to like highlight the best practices, working with the service teams to really bring it into our product, make it easier for others to use. And so Amplify, we're closely with them on the first one, we've got a few other ideas working with them to make it easier to deploy. So going back to the overview page, we'll go down, we can see We have dev environments here, which we'll look at in a bit. We also have issues, as Doug had mentioned, come built in with this. So this is a full-blown collaboration board, Kanban board. You can drag and drop as you expect. You can create custom views. Maybe you want to like have swim lanes for running your stand-up and other engineering rituals, things like that.
I like the word rituals.
Yeah, things you try to do. If we hop into one of these, this is Emily Freeman and I, we were working on this together. So this is a bug sheet or an update she sent me to make a better logo for our landing page. So in this demo, she sent me a better image. So I download that. You can see I clicked in from a link. I'm now in the source code. I haven't left CodeCatalyst. I joke that this is simple enough that even a PM can make this change. So what we're going to do is I could clone this repository like Steve brought up earlier. Click clone, I'll have my pat, it'll come down. Or I can use what we mentioned, dev environment. So imagine I've never done this before. I got to get this new image up. I'm a PM. I have a few options, JetBrains, as we mentioned. I can hop into VS Code, which we'll use in this example.
Very happy you picked that.
Yeah. And we'll actually work in a new branch for this one. So we'll call it like update landing page. And so what this is going to do now, because I picked VS Code, it's actually going to click and create is taking the dev file, it's specifying that, standing up the back end, pulling in all the code. Again, we mentioned why this is great if you work across lots of versions. It's opening up VS Code on my local machine, and then it's going to SSH into that remote host. So it's as if I have a local experience. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's how you actually create the dev environment, because it's actually the dev environment is actually running in, I would assume, a Cloud9 instance that is SSH'd into via VS Code. Is that right?
There's an instance that we're controlling that's connected to this one. Yeah,
Fair
absolutely. Enough. And so this did npm. This particular dev file has instructions to npm on start, and so like this is ready to go once this is a React project. So I'm going to npm run start, and what's nice about this is we also do port forwarding. So this is going to boot up, but actually port forward to my local host. And so while that's building, I'll pull in, what's really cool is I'm going to pull in a local image from my machine, drop it into this remote environment. You can see the two images now on the left and the right. That's the current website on my local host, and on the other side, I've got the new logo I want to use. And so that's, what's that called? Quokka Finder. So I'll go into my editor and just make that quick change. Where this gets really nice too is, so I'll save this, and it's going to rebuild as you would expect any React app to do. But I'm just going to git add, git push, git commit all this work. And at no point have I done anything. I haven't configured anything. Like the amount of times you have to do git config stuff is, this is just out of the box running for me because it's connected to that environment. So going back, I'll see now that there has been a update. You can see that less than a minute ago, I made a push new landing page logo. So that's, again, in a nutshell, the dev environment and how kind of cool that is. We'll show another example.
That is super cool. Yeah, you went over that fast, and
yeah. So let's take a second to take on it. Yeah,
but the permissions are actually to connect to that Git repo. The permissions there are actually within that dev instance that fired up. So you don't have to manage Git credentials on your local machine for that specific repo, right? Which is a living nightmare most of the times, because you got like 6 different, if you're lucky, 6 different, Git credentials that you have to switch between, and like, oh wait, is this the right repo for the right oh no,
which identity am I?
Yeah,
which persona do I want to be today? Yeah. I want to pause there if there's other questions on, but that's in the nutshell what it was. Is we're loading it into our local machine. I can interact with my local files, pull it in. It's like SSH connected. It feels local. But then it kind of clicks in like, oh wait, I didn't even have to npm I didn't have to do anything. And I have this like, I don't even know what version of Node that was running. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because it just worked because the maintainer of the repo set that up. So that's what you're getting from that experience. I know it's a little quick, but yeah, I pushed code up and it worked. It's like, it's kind of neat. You get in and out. So now with that push, I'm back into the repo. And what I'll do here is we're going to take a look at that. We'll actually go ahead and make a pull request. So we do a lot. Let's get into collaboration as well. We'll pop into here. This is when I was working again with Emily and then Adam, one of our the VP of our area. So I figured I'd assign him to this too. So make a pull request, new landing page.
It's brave.
I know he still hasn't responded.
Ah.
So we'll, you can, it's collaboration in these tools. And this is like what we've heard in the code suite too. It's like, unless you want to bring all your folks together, you want that option.
Mm-hmm.
So I made that pull request. Emily will get a notification. I can also go in here and see that there's other pull requests that were made that I got assigned to. So in this case here, this was a adding an about us section that Emily made earlier. So if we look at what this is, there's actually two things that happens. One is she snuck in a update to the on pull request build and test workflow. So this is just a little, I'm just pausing this here. This is like a little view of what it looks like. What we're doing is we're changing the compute type to Lambda, which is super fast and really appropriate for certain workflows like this. And then we'll take a look at this. We actually added auto test report generation. So CodeCatalyst also comes bundled with test reporting. So you can render any of the common like XML definitions and see it. You can do pass, fail, success scenarios, things like that. So this is just adding the workflow to actually look for those outputs. And then I think that's just a little about us component underneath. So then you'll see up in the right, there was actually a workflow run on the pull request because that existed. And we can see it succeeded. So again, it's like an integrated area. I can see what's happening. This one, all of this is doing is running a build and test to kind of sanity check any pull requests in this project. This was set up by the blueprint. You can customize this as you want. But we'll see here the test reporting. It actually outputted it. And we come with full UX for investigating those test reports and digging into it. And again, it's really nice not to have to leave your tool, not to have to leave like the domain or switch services. It's just integrated, again, oriented around the project. So yeah, so then, I'll approve that. And then merging, we have a couple strategies. I think this project was set up for squash and merge. So with that, we can merge in a change. I don't know if there's any thoughts or questions, or that was kind of quick too, but that's going to merge that in.
Oh, this is
and then,
awesome.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of a question. I'll pull a question out of this statement. This isn't built on top of GitHub Actions, but we mentioned earlier that you can actually utilize GitHub Actions within. Just wanted to clarify that. But no, this is CodeCatalyst. I'm going to drop a link in chat for everyone just in case they're joining us now, which seems we're getting a few people join us now. So far, this is amazing. I'm loving every minute.
Yeah, sweet. I just got like another minute or two on this one. So what we'll do, I'll show you where the GitHub comes in. So we've got a bunch of workflows running. You can see there's an on push to main workflow. And so when I merged that, there was a push made to the main branch. And so now when I click into that run, as I would expect, it's running. And it's running that workflow that we saw earlier today. So it's got the two actions, and it's ultimately going to deploy this new website. I didn't hang around for this. It takes a minute or two to do it. But what I wanted to show for all the JetBrains fans out there, this integration is super cool for dev environments. And actually, I think I can go back. On this page here, what you're seeing is a visual representation of our workflows. So you can also, Doug mentioned you can use YAML to edit this as well. But this is where you can drag and drop and add GitHub Actions. So you can make another in your stack, in your pipeline, you can drop in a GitHub action. You can add the mend action. And we have other, like we have like ECS deploy, CDK actions, CloudFormation actions. So you can edit that here as you're going and work on branch and then move that up to your main. So that's how that kind of all comes together from a consumption of that. So last part is the JetBrains one. What's super cool about this is JetBrains has a thing called JetBrains Gateway, and we partnered with them, and you can sign in with your CodeCatalyst ID, your builder ID, into the gateway. So notice that I'm not even in the browser right now, and I see Amazon CodeCatalyst is listed there. And if I click on it on the left, I'm going to be right in. I'm actually going to see all of the projects that belong to that space. So for the JetBrains loyalist, you never actually even have to go to the browser to do the workflow. So you can come in here. I can see I had one running for this Java app, and you can click that, and it's kind of anticlimactic. It's going to launch it as you would expect. But what's really cool about it is it's just integrated and it's there. It's waiting for me to come back into it. This was actually a paused dev environment, whereas earlier I launched a brand new one.
Mhm.
So this is also really helpful if like you pause, you walk away, you don't have to tear down your machine. You don't have to worry about that. You can also access it from anywhere you happen to be. So yeah, so we're brought into the IDE and able to mess around with that. That's what I've got for this demo. I think there's a lot to throw at everyone. So I'm gonna stop talking there. But yeah, any thoughts, questions? Doug's happy to answer them.
Especially hard ones.
That's right.
Wow, I mean, again, like just going back, just to highlight a few things through the demo. We already called out the Git configuration and tracking which repo has which credentials, and when you're working across multiple projects, that can get really, really messy and really difficult to track. So having that just pull up into an environment that's running in the cloud, right, in AWS, in a dev environment, that's amazing to me already. But then you think about things like the actual build tools, software tools that are installed on that dev environment. I don't know how many times I have run into, I just got a new machine and Java Home isn't set, and like it just broke this entire project that I swear I could build this project like 5 minutes ago, but oh no, this environment variable got unset, or I didn't have the right version of npm installed or something, right? Like, so having that all managed outside of your own local machine, I love it.
It's kind of the end of being able to say, well, it works on my machine, must be yours.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. That you're giving the famous saying right there, but you were giving the reverse of it. But the whole "it works on my machine." Sorry, go figure it out, right? Like,
yeah. Well, now I can give you my local machine.
Exactly.
That's what's super cool. I mean, that's not totally. There's some complications to that one because of permissions, and we don't just give everyone access. Like, I should clarify: dev environments are private to you. So when you spin that up, no one else in the system can access them or see them. But the root, what's seeded that, the code base and the dev file is shared. And it's really powerful that way.
We've got a clarifying question here from chat. Mainly focused on cloud dev environments, replicating managed infrastructure, making the offline environments close to production. Always a hassle for us. That's just part of what we were seeing in CodeCatalyst too. Actually, Nicholas joined us midstream, so I think Nicholas missed some of the beginning where we're talking through things like blueprints, where you can just automatically provision out a type of entire CI/CD pipeline, right, from source to deployment.
I was going to say, I was going to reiterate there. So all of that you just showed, the source repo, yes, I can use my own if I already have them, but for that demo, the source repo, the build pipelines, the environments, the issue management, all of that and more came from those blueprints.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah, think of blueprints as doing kind of three jobs. It's your IAC, it's your infrastructure, it's your definitions. And right now we're working with the AWS service teams to do best practices for those. Eventually, you could imagine internal teams doing that. Right. Then think about the tool chain, the pipelines. Like, do I want GitHub? Do I want test reporting? Do I want this? That's defined by the blueprint. And then the last part is the application code. And we've got some interesting decisions of like, do customers want like a Spring Boot app that just gets you the baseline to go, or do we want the full stack app? And we've got some really interesting learning to do over the next year of like the style of those blueprints. But the application part is going to be really interesting. And then figuring out how we can swap out any of those parts to be extensible. So yeah, it is all of those, with the goal of the dev environments being kind of cherry on top of how I do my day-to-day work, because I'm not creating projects daily. That's at least hopefully not.
Don't ask Steve, because he'll say all blueprints just need to be C#.
We have two .NET blueprints.
We have .NET in there, yes.
Yeah, we work closely with the .NET team. It's been awesome.
Yep.
It's great to have that as well. Of course, I'm only digging at Steve. I also program in C# from time to time. We've got a question from chat around using CodeCatalyst with, if I currently use AWS Amplify, how could this help improve my workflow? And we actually saw that in the demo a bit, right? You were using Amplify hosting specifically in the CodeCatalyst blueprint that you had deployed out there. Any other advantages?
So right now, so they have a good. Amplify is amazing if you're
I
doing
love
front end
Amplify.
development. Yeah, everything they're doing is really great. So they're where we deviate is when you're dealing with more infrastructure as code. So if you wanted a backend for your Amplify site, I wouldn't rush to change the source provider and everything you're doing to push your React app up. We do support Amplify hosting. So if you start from scratch, sure. But where we would start to integrate is if you want your backend and the kind of the DevOps side there. We are working closely with that team to figure out better ways. So we'd love to hear if there's pain points or opportunities there for working across teams. But so right now, it's more if you're doing a fresh start. If you've got something else, they're so good at the front end. We didn't want to take that away.
Once upon a time, I was an SDM over on the Amplify team.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
I love Amplify. That's one of my favorite. I hesitate to call it. Well, it has services now, but there's just so much to Amplify. But yes, such a great framework, and I love to see you all working so closely because I would argue, and I'm saying this, so if I'm wrong, you can just say no. That's just AM saying that. I would argue you both have the same goals of making developers' lives easier. Like that to me is what I see the common goal shared between CodeCatalyst and Amplify. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's well put. Yeah.
See, Steve, I can say things sometimes that I will put.
You can, yes, sometimes, not always.
We are close to time here, I think. Anything else, Doug or Kyle? Shall we give people kind of a jumping off point, a getting started? Obviously, CodeCatalyst.aws, I believe.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, go to CodeCatalyst.aws, create yourself an account, and give us feedback, right? So as you use it and you learn, there's a give feedback button in the upper right-hand corner, or find me on LinkedIn or find Kyle on LinkedIn. Yeah. Send us a message.
Feedback will email us directly, so that's probably the fastest way to get to Doug and I.
Yeah, we basically so we watch those very closely, and we had a fairly large beta program, and the beta drove what we did. So we take the feedback seriously. So we'd love to hear from you guys about things that work well or things that didn't work as you expected, right? We want to hear all of it. So
the question around before we wrap up around EFS, how is the EFS integrated with CodeCatalyst? Before you two answer, I'll ask Rudix World, who asked the question, to maybe put in some clarification here. Do you mean how is CodeCatalyst integrated with EFS to deploy EFS, or how does it work with a deployment of EFS? That was what came to my mind. I don't know, Doug or Kyle, if this.
We don't have a direct integration with EFS, but what we do have a really deep integration with, and we've bet a lot on, is CloudFormation and CDK.
Okay.
And what we're building, so definitely this is a good example of follow up with feedback. So we have a team tightly similar to Code Deploy Spirit. We create actions like CDK deploy, CloudFormation deploy, ECS deploys. Those are all opportunities for us to make it easier to put the code out there. But at the end of the day, our pipelines are like code pipeline. You can write a CDK action and go in there, or you can just call the AWS SDK as well. So that's our current, we don't have anything more than that yet, but we'd love to learn more about the use case. Definitely.
Rudix World. And again, I'm like maybe putting my own thoughts into this as well, but Rudix World says basically persistent storage, where I'm thinking maybe Rudix World is talking about how does the build server access something like EFS, right? Can I attach EFS to a build server to have persistent stored files or something on there? But I'm guessing.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I don't have that answer. Unfortunately, I'd like to chat with the build team though. That's definitely a good idea. We might, have to check.
And if you can, Rudix World, drop in chat. Is that what you're asking? The build server specifically connecting up with an EFS deployment so it can access files on the file share. Anyway,
it's a good question, and I mean those are the things. I think it comes back to what Steve opened up with too. Is like everyone's got really unique needs, and AWS does a lot.
Totally.
And whether that's ECR you want to use, whether that's Code Artifact you like to be using, or EFS, We want to be flexible to meet those. And that could be third-party places where you're storing these packages and things. So if we don't have the integration yet, definitely let us know, because then we can start to it helps us prioritize where we want to focus that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Doug, Kyle, thank you so much. This is amazing. Really, really cool service. I think this is one of the top things I hear from everyone I talk to about AWS is I need some guidance, and that's what you all are providing here with CodeCatalyst around building a CI/CD pipeline. You still can, utilize all of the building blocks that are there too. If you've got very specific needs, very specific ways that you need to structure your CI/CD pipeline, but this seems like an incredible way to jump in and get started with a pipeline very easily.
Yep, that's what we hope.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Well, thank you both, and we hope to see you again on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice work today. Well done.
Thank you both.